It's time to talk health. So this morning on the health segment, we're going to be talking hernia. Now, what is a hernia? What do we need to know? How to prevent it? Is it preventable? Are we doomed to get it? And if you do have it, what do you do next and all that? Dr. Kelvin has joined us and we're going to have that conversation. Now, the segment is interactive, so kindly use the hashtag Breakfast Daily for us to know what you're thinking. Also, the WhatsApp line, if you have questions for Dr. Kelvin regarding hernia, it's 0550585832. Dr. Kelvin, good morning.
Good morning, David.
How are you doing?
I'm very well.
Fantastic. All right, so I guess we just jump right into it. What is a hernia?
Okay, so there are different parts of the body, and every sort of segment of the body has its limits where it's supposed to, span up from here to here.
Okay.
Now every time any part of the body moves beyond those limits, we call it herniation. Okay. It's just an English word. It means you have gone beyond your limits. So you can have a hernia occurring almost any part of the body.
Okay.
I'm sure you may have heard about brainstem herniation.
Yes.
You may have heard about a hiatus hernia. You may have heard about umbilical hernia. You have heard about inguinal hernia. So there are hernias all over the place. That will definitely come up in this discussion.
Okay.
So anytime any of the viscera, any of the parts of the body moves beyond the limits, we call it a hernia or herniation. Okay. But when we use the term hernia generally without any specification, we're usually referring to hernia in the abdominal region.
Okay.
So if you say somebody has a hernia, most likely it's a hernia because an abdominal viscera has moved beyond its limits.
Okay.
Now the reason why I'm stressing on this is that not all hernias are seen with the eye. Some hernias could occur inside. Okay. You may not see it, but it doesn't mean it's not a hernia.
Okay.
So for instance, a small intestine could herniate through a certain opening inside the abdominal cavity. You may not see it, but it's a hernia which needs to be attended to.
Okay.
But the commonest hernia that most people have without realizing that it's a hernia is actually an umbilical hernia.
Okay.
Typically, when you look at your belly button and it's big,
yes,
that's a hernia.
Oh.
So that's a hernia that most people are not aware that it's even a hernia, and it's usually a hernia that doesn't cause much problems, and almost everybody has had it before. When you're a baby, especially when the baby is crying, you notice that the belly button becomes bigger.
Yes.
It's because the intestines or some of the abdominal contents are pushing against the skin of the belly button.
Yeah.
So that's an umbilical hernia. And it's like I said, it's almost everybody has had it, But as you grow older, the space or the hole, the opening in that area closes up, and so that's why as you grow older, your belly button gets smaller and smaller. Okay. But some people, for some people, that hole, that opening doesn't close completely, so they have a persistent umbilical hernia for all their lives.
I see.
For many people, it doesn't cause any problem, so they just live with it. Of course, if you intend to, if you're a woman and you intend to wear bikini or show off your your abs, then it might be a bit of a problem for you. Or if you're a guy and you're a bodybuilder and you want to flex your abs, you can't be going out with a big belly button. So then you could have a surgery to close it up. Okay. But that's the commonest one that almost everybody has had at some point in their life.
I see. No, because I remember a friend of mine, a lady used to complain, that when she wears a dress, then this thing sticking out of the dress.
Yeah.
It was for her, a very unflattering thing.
Exactly.
I didn't know what to say, because I wish I knew this then. I said, go check it. It's a hernia.
Exactly. Yeah. So now you know.
Now I know.
You can score your points.
Oh yeah, I'll send the video to her after the show.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, there are different types of hernia. So if we take away the umbilical hernia, then the next commonest hernia you find in males is the inguinal hernia. Okay. And now the inguinal hernia or the inguinal region is the region where is the connection between the thigh and the abdomen.
Okay.
So if you part this line is what I'm talking about. This is the line we call the inguinal region.
Oh.
So an inguinal hernia automatically means that it's around the inguinal region.
Okay.
Now, if an inguinal hernia is not dealt with, then it grows and becomes an inguinoscrotal hernia or a scrotal hernia. So I'm sure that
we've known that and
exactly
know what that is, but
exactly.
It was called inguinal hernia.
It starts as an inguinal hernia.
Oh, okay.
And if it's not attended to, if it's not treated, then it gets bigger. You see, because the hernia, it's okay. Let me back it up a bit. If you look at the anatomy of the human body, there's a space in the inguinal region, which allows blood vessels and nerves to move from the abdomen. You know, because the blood vessels are coming from the heart. To the layman, it started from the heart and it's applying all through the body. So if you look at the image, you see the inguinal hernia pointed out over there. Now I was explaining that blood vessels start from the heart and it's applying all through the body. So the heart is in the chest. So from the chest, there's an opening in the chest to allow the blood vessel to enter the abdomen, and then from the abdomen there's an opening in the inguinal region to allow the blood vessels to go into the legs. Now that opening, everywhere there's an opening, could also be a potential point of weakness. So because there's an opening to allow blood vessels to enter the legs, that point is also a point of weakness. So if you keep engaging in things that predispose you to a hernia, that is where the hernia will occur, because it will force the hole to open up. So when that hole opens up, and I'm mixing Tree and English, and so when that hole opens up, then the abdominal content, it could just be fat. You know, because inside the abdomen there's fat, there's fluid, there are intestines, there are blood vessels, there are so many things inside the abdomen. So it's not only intestine that can come out, but usually intestine and fat is the commonest thing that comes out. So that opening gets bigger as you keep indulging in things that cause the hernia to become bigger. And as it gets bigger, more content enters the space, and then it forces its way, because the inguinal region is a canal, you know, which is usually closed, but once something enters, it opens up, and then the intestine or the content in the hernia sac will then move and then get into the scrotum. You know, so we've seen people with enlarged scrotum. It's actually abdominal content that has come out through the inguinal canal and has landed in the scrotum. You know, and if you still do nothing about it, it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And let me just blow your mind, it could eventually cause you to actually become sterile.
Wow.
Yes, and this is because, I mean, we all know, we've had sessions here already where we spoke about the fact that there's an optimal temperature for the testis to function. You know, and that is actually why it is hanging outside. The very reason why it's hanging outside is because it needs a cooler environment than the body. So it's hanging outside to maintain that temperature. So now, if the contents in the abdomen are now in the scrotum, it means it is disrupting the temperature balance inside the scrotum. So if it so happens that you actually have bilateral hernias, which means both testes are now, you know, sitting with abdominal content, then there's a problem. So it could actually cause you to have problems with sperm production. You know, so it's not something that, and this is why it's interesting, you see, because men have always been particular about their prowess. So it's surprising that there are quite a lot of men walking around with hernias. It doesn't actually.
No, so what is it that prevents? For men to be walking around with it is because they probably don't think it's a problem, or it's a problem that needs urgent attention?
Well, I mean, sometimes, and there have been, in the past, there have been communities where everybody had a hernia. So
it seemed normal.
It seemed normal, you know. And then also because there were not, I mean, at the time, there were not enough doctors who could, you know, perform the surgeries. And, you know, so there was if it's not available, if the solution is not available, we might as well just carry our hernia and walk about, you know. And so that is really the situation. So now there's education, now there's the solutions available, and even to an extent, it's covered by health insurance, so you shouldn't be walking around with a hernia, really. You know. Now I mentioned men. Hernias are also common in women, you know, but just not the inguinal hernia. You know, women also have their own, you know, hernias that they suffer. And one of the commonest ones that women would get would be incisional hernias. Both male and female get incisional hernias. That means that you had a surgery, you know, an abdominal surgery, and you know, once you're having a surgery, it means that the surgeon is going to cut through skin, is going to cut through muscles, you know, so there's a weakness at the point of the surgery, you know. And the commonest surgery that is performed is a cesarean section. So you could actually have your abdominal content protruding through, you know, an old cesarean surgery, which is a cesarean scar, you know. So women also have their hernias as well, you know. Then there are hernias that are internal. I mentioned hiatus hernia. Hiatus hernia is when your stomach, the stomach is sitting right under the diaphragm. The diaphragm separates the chest from the stomach, from the abdomen. Now, where I mentioned everywhere there's an opening, you know, there is a point of weakness. So in the diaphragm, there's an opening to allow the esophagus, the gullet, to enter the abdomen. And so at that opening, it's also a point of weakness. So sometimes.
So the diaphragm sits around all of that.
The diaphragm is a dome-shaped muscle.
Yes.
Which separates the chest from the stomach, from the abdomen.
Okay.
Now,
so the gullet passes through that.
Yes. So the gullet passes through the diaphragm to enter the abdomen to connect with the stomach. And so once there's an opening in the diaphragm, it's a point of weakness.
Yeah.
So over time, if you expose yourself to some of the things that actually predispose you to hernias, your stomach can actually shift upwards. So that now your stomach is in your chest.
Okay.
Just like how your intestine can be found in your scrotum.
Okay.
So now your stomach, a part of your stomach could be sitting in your chest. Now what that means is that you're going to have symptoms, or you're going to have reflux, because the mouth of the stomach, which is supposed to be closed, is now above the diaphragm.
Yes.
So the closing is not efficient. So acid can now enter, go up and down. So once you lie flat, you have acid flowing into your gullet, into your esophagus, and then you have pain and discomfort. So if somebody is having recurrent reflux or having pain, chest pain that is not related to the heart or related to the lungs, one of the things we look out for is hiatus hernia.
Hiatus hernia. Wow. So you keep referring to things that people do that predispose them to hernia. What are some of these things?
So the number one, or everything we are going to say, is one.
Okay.
Increase intra-abdominal pressure.
Okay.
So the cause of hernia is an increase in intra-abdominal pressure. Once the pressure inside the abdomen is increasing, you're going to have things in the abdomen trying to find ways to reduce that pressure.
Yeah.
And so that is how they force their way through openings where they are not supposed to be passing. So anything that causes an increase in intra-abdominal pressure can predispose you to have a hernia.
Okay.
So now, what are the things that cause increase intra-abdominal pressure?
I can think of one.
Which one is that?
Going to the gym and not being adequately
kitted. Yes. Perfect.
Yeah.
So that's actually one of the commonest causes of hernia in young people, especially young males.
Okay.
So athletes, they tend to get hernia as a result of the heavy weights they lift.
Okay.
And in that same regard, manual workers also get hernia as a result of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
So you are absolutely right. But one of the commonest causes of hernia is actually pregnancy.
Oh. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Because
of course, so again, pressure is being
put in the So and I'm going to digress slightly and introduce another topic which is not for today. Hemorrhoids also are caused by increased intra-abdominal pressure. So that is why pregnant women tend to have issues with hemorrhoids as well.
Okay.
So everything that causes hernia also causes hemorrhoids. So that's the relationship right there.
Wow.
So pregnancy causes increased intra-abdominal pressure.
Okay.
Tumors can cause increased intra-abdominal pressure.
Okay.
Diarrhea, if you have chronic diarrhea, you have increased intra-abdominal pressure. It can result in hernias.
Is that because of the large
the constant chiming? Chiming?
Yeah, chiming.
Yes.
And so chim.
Yes. So the straining that you are putting on the intestines is causing pressure.
Okay.
So related to diarrhea is constipation. So both ends of the spectrum will cause hernia because they all increase intra-abdominal pressure.
Okay.
So if you have frequent occurrence of diarrhea, you could develop a hernia. If you have frequent occurrence of constipation, you could develop a hernia as well. Chronic cough can also result in a hernia. So if you're always coughing and you are not bothered to go and find a solution to the cough, you are predisposing yourself to a hernia. Because every time you cough, every time you strain, every time you lift weight, you increase abdominal pressure, which means you are forcing things to move, to the peripheries. Okay. And the openings I spoke about earlier are all in the peripheries. You have the inguinal canal on the two sides of the lower portion of the abdomen. You have the diaphragm over here. So it's forcing things out of the area of pressure. And so as they keep hitting the holes, they keep hitting the openings, the opening is going to get weaker, and then it's going to now allow the abdominal content to pass through. And as they pass through, you still don't deal with it. You continue lifting the weight, you continue coughing, you continue having a constipation. The sac or the opening is going to get bigger, which means it's going to allow more things to go into it. So I've actually had a patient who literally, the gentleman walks in and he is bent over slightly, and he has this big pouch between his legs.
I see.
And literally his almost all his small intestine had moved from the abdomen into the scrotum. So he literally could not even stand up straight because all the contents have actually entered the scrotum. So he had to bend slightly to be able to accommodate. Because if you stretch, there's going to be pain because you are, you know, exactly. Wow. So that's definitely a problem, you know.
Okay. So in terms of solutions, what's the solution?
So let me talk about complications before we come to solution, because people need to know that it's not just a matter of movement of the intestine. Now, a hernia could become trapped inside wherever it got stuck in. So typically, you have your intestines in the scrotum. In the beginning, because in the beginning, there won't be a problem. So when you eat, the food is able to go into the scrotum and then come back up without any issue, because the sac is able to slide in and out. And most people with hernias, they actually are able to push the herniated content back into the abdomen. They
So you can just push it back and it will go back.
It will go.
Wow.
It's just that you push it back, the gate is still open, so it will come back up, it will come back out, you know. But they're able to push it in and out. They have their ways of managing. In fact, again, I had a funny experience. A gentleman comes into the consulting room, and all of us were struggling to push the hernia back into the abdomen, because for us to do a proper examination, we need to actually reduce it. We need to push it back so that we see how big the hole is to find a solution. Nobody was able to do it. Then this was in our early days as medical officers. Then our boss comes in and says, but why didn't you ask the gentleman to do his own thing? So we asked him to reduce his thing, and he actually did it in like a split second. That was quite an experience.
Wow.
You know, but now it gets to a point when the sac gets stuck and refuses to go in, and that's dangerous, because that could result in emergency operation. And now imagine if you are not anywhere near a facility where there's a person who can actually do the operation, you will die, because your intestines are going to become strangulated, which means there's no blood actually going into the intestine. And once there's no blood going anywhere, it begins to die. And if intervention is not done early, it will die. And when it dies, it begins to release toxins, which it will now spread throughout the body. Into the exactly. So this is actually a source of fatality. You know, so yes, hernia, we laugh about it, but it's really a big deal, which can actually kill you if you don't treat it properly.
Poisoning the blood.
Yes. Because the intestine is dead, the cells are dead, and once cells die, they release chemicals that the body does not like, which is why the body has a mechanism to remove old cells. You know, so if your blood, for you to understand, a heart attack is basically a blood supply to that part of the heart was cut off. So the heart in that segment is dead. That is why you have a heart attack. So basically, if your intestine becomes strangulated, you are having an attack in the intestine. So it's the same thing. So you have pain, you can't move. It's terrible. It's really, really, I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, you know, and requires immediate surgery. You see, and there are already complications associated with emergency operations. So if that operation could have been done as a well-planned elective operation, it's definitely better. So we want to attack the hernia when it is small, so that we can deal with it quickly. You know, so this has led me to a solution. It's surgery. There's no medicine that can cure hernia. And I'm stressing on this because you sit in churches, you go to bus stations, sometimes you even hear on radio and TV that this medicine cures hernia. There's no medicine that can cure hernia, and I'm speaking authoritatively. There's no medicine. Because it's
a physical movement.
Exactly.
So it's not something that can be, you know,
Exactly.
Right. Good. So there's a question here. This is from Aziz in Debiso, and he says, "Good morning. I had a surgery for inguinal hernia on the 26th of June 2020. Till date, I still have the sore. What should I do? I'm tired of it."
Well, that's unusual, but I mean, has he gone for review? You know, because I'm on a campaign on this side. I think almost every time we talk about reviews, it's important that you go for review, because there could be a reason why the sore is not healing. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of one: diabetes can prevent a wound from healing. I don't know if you are diabetic. Age can slow down the healing process. You know, maybe you return to work too early, because remember that it's increasing intra-abdominal pressure can cause the surgery to fail.
Okay.
So did you return to work too early? So which means that the surgeon may not have actually done what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Now the final thing is that in the repair of hernia, they use foreign material. When I say foreign material, they bring in material from outside the body. So for instance, if you're repairing an inguinal hernia, because the hole has become bigger, you need to close the hole.
Up the hole.
So they use the commonest thing they use is a mesh.
Okay.
And the mesh is an artificial product, artificial item, and made from, I mean, the nylon. It could be something. It could be any of the material that the body tolerates. So now you put that mesh behind the gate to close it.
Yeah.
Now that's a foreign material. So not everybody's body accepts these foreign materials. So it's your body reacting to that particular material.
Okay.
You need to go for review so that all of these things can be assessed. We wouldn't know until the surgery is done before we know whether your body will accept it or not. You know, so I would really encourage him to go for review. It's something that we don't do as Ghanaians enough of it.
Yeah. So Aziz, I mean, please find your doctor and go for review. It's important. So wrapping this up. Generally speaking, you mentioned earlier that it's quite a common thing that we find across. What's the way forward? I mean, if we're going to, is it just education that we can do? What can we do to reduce the number of hernias that we have? Well,
I mean, so education is important because there's no way you will not have increased abdominal pressure. It's part of our life. It's part of our daily activity to have increased intra-abdominal pressure. I mean, you get a cold, you have constipation, you have diarrhea. You can't do anything about those things. But if you are aware about these things, then you put in measures. You know, so for instance, there's a proper way to lift items.
Okay.
You know, so if your job involves lifting heavy weights, have you learned the proper way of lifting? You know, are you wearing the proper protective equipment? Because there's a belt they are supposed to, and that's why the belt is put at
There's a large belt when you are going to the gym.
Yes, you put it in the lower part of your abdomen because that is where the weakness is. So you are protecting that weakness so that if you know that you're going to lift heavy weights, you wear that belt. Unfortunately, we only see people in the gym wearing these belts. We don't see people working at the ports, people working in the markets. The belt is not just meant for gym.
No.
It's meant for everybody who is involved in heavy lifting. So you need to protect yourself, because if you do develop a hernia, then the only solution is a surgery to reduce to close up the opening.
Okay.
You know.
Can you develop a strong core as like a workout for that to compensate for some of the pressure that may build inside?
The simple, straightforward answer is yes.
Okay.
You see, but it takes time, and most people, for instance, people who go to the gym don't invest that much time. They want quick results. They want to develop the abs. So they actually don't spend enough time developing their core to give them that protection. If you work in the market, you don't have time to develop your core. You have to lift the heavy item now. It's not now you're going to do planks and all those things to build your core.
Pilates and things.
Exactly. You know, so yes, the simple answer is yes. But frankly speaking, not many people have that time, the luxury of time to build the core before they engage in the information, the things that cause the increased abdominal pressure. I mean, take pregnancy. How do you build your core before you get pregnant? I mean, it's not part of the education. So if you are pregnant and you end up developing a hernia, I mean, it's a biological process. You can't do anything about it, you see. But you need to be aware that the hernia is a possible outcome, so that if you develop it, you quickly go and get, you know, the necessary interventions put in place.
Okay. So Mary Nasherman is saying these revelations from Dr. Owusu is serious. So yeah, they are serious. Thank you for that message. The one is coming from Ni in Kaswai. It's a question: is hernia surgery safe for the elderly?
Is any surgery safe for the elderly? That's a very important question, you see. So we don't have there's no hard and fast rule. It depends on the individual. So if an individual comes in, he's 80 years old, he's fit, has well-controlled diabetes, well-controlled hypertension, you know, definitely that person, and that person can actually, if you fix that hernia for this person, he can actually go back to his farming because he's still strong, then why not? But if a 50-year-old person comes in with terrible diabetes, terrible hypertension, the person lives a sedentary life, we can't do much about that person at that moment until he or she changes the lifestyle. You see, because you could go in and repair that hernia,
but their lifestyle will just
and the wound might not even heal because the person has poorly controlled diabetes.
Okay.
So it's dependent on the individual we are dealing with.
Okay. So last one, I'm just wrapping up here. Eben says, I had a inguinal hernia surgery in 2019. I'm okay, but sometimes I feel sharp pains. Is that normal? Especially when I walk a lot.
Well, I mean, you see, there are two aspects of this situation. The pain could be real or the pain could be phantom.
Okay.
You see, because once there's been an invasion of your space, you're always going to feel like there's something going on. So is the pain real? It'll be difficult for me to know until you have actually. And this is why the review is important. Okay. You know, because it could also mean that maybe the foreign material that was placed over there was not positioned properly. We won't know until you have actually assessed. So that's what I mean by, is the pain real or is the pain phantom? So if it's real, then we need to investigate and deal with whatever is causing the pain. If it's phantom, well, then that one you just have to condition your mind that it's not real. It's just my mind telling me because somebody has invaded my space. You know, I mean. Women who have had cesarean section will tell you the same thing. Sometimes they feel a poke here, poke there, you know. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not. So review is important.
Fantastic. Dr. Kelvin, how can people reach you?
Well, I'm active on social media, Kelvin Owusu MD, all social media channels, even now, even TikTok.
Well, you know how it is on social media. So we'll be speaking with Dr. Kelvin Owusu. You can reach him everywhere, including TikTok.